The late afternoon sun cast long, slanted shadows across the parking lot of Jerry's roadside diner, a small but well-known stop for locals and passing truckers in Lincoln, Nebraska. The quiet hum of conversations and the clinking of dishes inside was periodically interrupted by the roar of engines as trucks pulled in and out of the lot. From the outside, the diner seemed a peaceful oasis amid the vast, flat stretches of the Nebraska countryside. But for one man, today would unfold into something far darker than a simple lunch break. Henry Powell, a man in his mid-40s, rolled his sleek black wheelchair into the parking lot of Jerry's. Dressed in a crisp button-down shirt and faded jeans, Henry moved with a calm confidence that came from years of experience. His dark eyes, framed by glasses, scanned the diner's familiar exterior as he approached the door, unaware of how his arrival would serve as the catalyst for unforeseen chaos. Across the parking lot, a group of 5 bikers leaned against their motorcycles, their raucous laughter cutting through the otherwise serene afternoon. They were members of the Outlaw Rebels gang, and they eyed Henry with unsettling interest. They'd seen him before and viewed him as nothing more than an easy target. One of the bikers, a tall man with a rugged face and a patch that read Outlaw Rebels, nudged his buddy with a smirk. "Hey, Rolling Thunder," he called out loudly with a taunting voice. "Looks like we got ourselves a real-life superhero. What's the matter, man? Forget to get up this morning?" The laughter that followed felt sharp and cruel, echoing into the diner as if sinister in nature. Henry ignored them, his gaze still fixed on the door ahead. Moving forward without hesitation, his back straight, he didn't let their antics bury him in embarrassment. The bikers, however, weren't going to let him pass. They closed the distance quickly, heavy boots thudding on the gravel as they surrounded him. "Not so fast, buddy," the burly biker with the Outlaw Rebels patch sneered, blocking Henry's path. "You think you can just roll on through like nobody's business?" Henry paused, his hand resting on the rim of his wheelchair. "I'm just here for lunch," he stated calmly, his voice steady and unwavering. But the biker wasn't about to let it go. "What's the matter? Not going to say anything funny, huh?" he taunted, leaning in closer to intimidate. Henry's lips tightened, but he maintained his level gaze. He wasn't about to engage in their mind games. Pulling out his phone, he dialed a number and raised it to his ear. "Who you calling?" the leader demanded, his tone sharp. "You think the cops are going to help you out here?" Henry didn't respond directly. Instead, he spoke low into the phone. "They're here," he said simply before hanging up. The bikers exchanged uneasy glances, their laughter dying down as they processed his unexpected calmness. It wasn't the reaction they typically garnered. "What you got?" "Backup coming," one of them asked with a nervous edge, although a chuckle still lingered in the air, shallow and hollow. Minutes passed in tense silence as Henry shifted his wheelchair slightly, positioning himself against the diner wall, seemingly unbothered. The bikers began to fidget restlessly, the shift in atmosphere palpable, the lightheartedness of their earlier banter evaporating. Then, just as the tension reached its peak, something unexpected happened. A deep rumble broke the silence, initially faint, like the distant sound of thunder, but quickly grew louder, cutting sharply through the quiet of the parking lot. The bikers turned their heads toward the road, the sound of engines roaring becoming impossible to ignore. Henry didn't flinch. The faint smile tugging at his lips hinted at satisfaction. A convoy of motorcycles appeared in the distance, their chrome glinting under the sun, the roar of their engines deafening. The bikers' faces drained of color as the group of riders, each dressed in black leather, pulled into the parking lot. There were dozens of them, mighty guardians, moving with the precision of a military operation, their presence undeniable. The leader of the Outlaw Rebels stepped back, his earlier bravado crumbling at the sight. "Who the hell are these guys?" he muttered under his breath, already sensing the answer, but unwilling to admit it. The convoy stopped, their bikes lining up in perfect formation as they dismounted as one, the sound of boots hitting the gravel synchronized and deliberate. The leader of the convoy, a tall man with a silver beard and piercing blue eyes, stepped forward and quickly surveyed the situation, his gaze landing on Henry. "You good, brother?" he asked, his voice calm but filled with authority. Henry nodded, maintaining his composed expression. "I am now," he replied, his voice unwavering. The leader, known as Jonah, shifted his piercing gaze toward the gang of outlaw rebels, who now appeared small in contrast to the hulking presence of the Guardians. The bikers who had been mocking Henry moments before stood frozen, their confidence drained, replaced by nervous glances and uneasy shuffling. "This is about respect," Jonah stated, his tone unwavering, silencing any further arguments. "Something you clearly don't understand." Their leader, once filled with bravado, now looked diminished in stature. He opened his mouth to say something but hesitated, sensing the futility in arguing against an undeniable wave of power. "You going to apologize to him?" Jonah continued, his voice measured and firm. "And then you're going to leave. You won't be causing any more trouble in this town." The leader of the outlaw rebels sputtered defensively. "We didn't mean anything by it, just messing around," he muttered, but his plea fell flat, drowned by the intensity of Jonah's gaze. "Messing around? Harassing a man in a wheelchair isn't messing around. It's cowardice," Jonah retorted, the truth of his words crashing over the bikers like a cold wave. For the first time, the outlaw rebels were silent. The weight of Jonah's words sank in. Their previous bravado evaporated as they faced the reality of their actions. "I'm sorry," their leader muttered at last, looking down as his anger dissipated. "I'm sorry." Henry remained silent for a moment, allowing the weight of the words to linger painfully in the air. Finally, after surveying the gang with chilled neutrality, he cut through the tension like a knife. "I don't think you really mean it," he said calmly. Jonah leaned in closer, his voice low but firm. "You better mean it," he warned, a fierce determination glinting in his eyes. The threat was clear, and the leader of the outlaw rebels stiffened, recognizing that there would be no more chances. The apology came again, louder and more sincere this time. "I'm sorry," the leader blurted, his voice strained as he forced his eyes back to the ground to avoid the steely gaze of Jonah. The others mumbled their apologies as well, the weight of defeat heavy upon them. "Good," Jonah said simply. "Now leave. And remember, you don't get second chances." As the bikers scrambled back to their motorcycles, the guardians of the road stood tall, their silent presence overwhelming. Gone was the arrogance of the outlaw rebels, replaced with shame and fear. The sound of engines revving filled the air as the outlaw rebels sped off, quickly and in a hurry. With the threat now gone, the Guardians remained for a moment, ensuring the bikers had truly left. Jonah turned back to Henry, his expression softening. "You good?" he asked again, his voice now kind, but filled with the understanding of someone who knew what it was like to stand up for others. Henry nodded, his face unreadable but calm. "I'm fine now," he assured, the chaos of the last minutes finally beginning to melt away. Jonah placed a reassuring hand on Henry's shoulder. "You're not alone in this world, brother. You're part of a bigger family than you realize." Henry looked out at the convoy of bikers surrounding him, their strong, silent camaraderie resonating deeply within him. He didn't need to say anything more. The message had been delivered loud and clear. As the Guardians mounted their bikes once again, the rumble of engines filled the parking lot, but this time it wasn't a sign of intimidation. It was a sign of solidarity. They rode out in unison, a reminder that strength came in numbers and no one had to face darkness alone. Henry took a slow, steady breath as he watched them leave, the tension that had built during the confrontation finally lifting, the weight of the encounter fading. Inside Jerry's roadside diner, life slowly returned to normal. The patrons who had been watching from the windows began to murmur amongst themselves, their conversations hushed but filled with awe and wonder. Rolling back toward the diner door, Henry's calm demeanor never faltered as it had become his shield against confrontation. The door opened with a soft jingle, and the waitress, a woman with short blonde hair, looked up from her notepad, concern etching her features as she spotted him. "You okay out there?" she asked gently. Henry returned her smile, his voice warm as he replied, "Yeah, everything's fine now. Just a little misunderstanding." The waitress raised an eyebrow, but refrained from pressing further. "Your usual?" she asked, already scribbling down the order. Henry nodded, feeling a sense of comfort in the familiarity. He made his way to his usual booth, settling in with a quiet ease. He had been through far worse in his life than what had happened today, and as he waited for his meal, today stood as a vivid reminder. Standing up for what's right sometimes required the courage to face down the very darkness that could come at any moment. Outside, the world continued to buzz with the thrill of life. But for Henry, there was also a newfound warmth surging within, a recognition that he was, indeed, surrounded by people who respected the strength that came from stepping forward, no matter the circumstance. As he sat in the diner, dialing the number of a friend from the Guardians, he realized there were echoes of hope amidst the shadows, and sometimes dark encounters lead only to an affirmation of unity. "Jonah," Henry spoke once the line connected, pride swelling in his voice. "I want to thank you for today. I didn't know I'd have support like that." Jonah's voice came through, steady as ever. "It's what we do. We've all got each other's backs." Henry smiled, feeling a lightness as conversations flowed around him in the diner, the normalcy washing over him like a comforting embrace. Sometimes, he thought, the unexpected catalysts of joy can be wrapped in the chaos of darkness, revealing the strength of numbers and the loyalty of family, whether blood-related or chosen. That was the power of the Guardians of the Road, and Henry realized he was proud to be